Next, we're going to look at attitude change strategies suggested by the multi-attribute attitude model. The multi-attribute model is diagnostic, meaning that it reveals some important information to a brand manager. It shows your brand's strengths and weaknesses, and it also shows how your brand stands compared to the competition. From this, we can find 4 different strategies a manager can use to try to improve the target market's attitude toward the brand. If you look at the model itself mathematically, you can think about it as a game that the goal is trying to increase the number of points that your brand has compared to the competition. Here is the multi-attribute model that we worked up for Olive Garden, Chili's, and TGIF. Assuming that we're Olive Garden, we can see that while quality of food is the most important, our performance is pretty poor. We're only rated a 6, behind Chili's and just ahead of TGIF's. The second most important thing to customers was menu value. That's an 8. We're only rated a 6, last. Then service, where we're rated the highest, at 8, compared to a 6 and 5 for Chili's. And then finally, for the bar, which wasn't that important to most of the diners, but we're rated a 5 at the bottom, while Chili's and TGIF's are rated a 7 and a 9, respectively. So, to help understand and illustrate these attitude change strategies, we're going to relate them to this situation here as if we were a marketing manager for Olive Garden. The first strategy is to change beliefs about the performance of an attribute that is important to your target market. In other words, find out what is most important to people and improve your performance on that so that you can get the most bang for your buck. Olive Garden should improve the quality of their food because it's the most important attribute to diners, and their score was not good. So it should be something that they can improve. If they were already at a 9, they may not be able to improve people's perceptions. So that might be difficult. But certainly if they're only perceived as a 6, they should be able to do so. And for each improvement in their rating, if they go from a 6 to a 7, a 7 to an 8, and so forth, they gain an extra 8 points, as we can see by looking at the model. So quality of food is the most important, and then Olive Garden is only at a 6. So if they were to get up to an 8, they would add 16 points. And their overall attitude score would be 178 plus 16, which would be 194, which would put them ahead of Chili's. The second different strategy is to increase the evaluation, the importance of an attribute where you have a competitive advantage in performance. In other words, find out what you do really well, better than your competition, and make it more important to the consumer. You're going to emphasize the importance of an attribute where you already have an advantage. So if we look at Olive Garden, they are best at service. They have an 8 compared to Chili's has a 5, TGIF Fridays has a 6. But service is only rated a 7. It's the third most important thing. So a good strategy for Olive Garden is to try to improve or enhance the importance of service. Get it rated a 10 or a 9. And because they're higher rated in performance with an 8 compared to Chili's and TGIF, they'll gain more points. So if service was to go up from a 7 to a 9, they would pick up an additional 4 points on TGIF Fridays and an additional 6 points on Chili's. because they're 3 better. So every time they go up one notch higher, more importance, they pick up 3 points compared to Chili's. And that 6 points would put them at 184 and put them much closer to Chili's and above TGIF Fridays. The third strategy is to change beliefs about the performance of a competitor on something that's important. So it may be that you can improve your performance, or at least your consumers' perception of your performance, but you might be able to influence how people perceive your competition. In other words, the competition may be perceived to be better than you, but you might be able to show your target market that your performance and their performance is the same. For example, let me get to the model here. Olive Garden is below Chili's in terms of menu value. That people rated menu value, which is basically a measure of what you get for the price, as an 8, where Olive Garden's only a 6. Olive Garden may not be able to improve that perception because they don't want to either give you more food or they don't want to lower their prices. But they may be able to show in advertising or in social media that Chili's isn't really the greatest bargain that it claims to be. That the serving sizes between Olive Garden and Chili's are basically the same. Chili's may charge you more for sides like guacamole and other things that are free at Olive Garden. And of course, Chili's doesn't provide seconds in terms of breadsticks or salad. So they might be able to change the perception of Chili's. So if they were to get Chili's performance to drop from an 8 to a 6 to the same as Olive Garden on menu value, then Chili's would drop 16 points because the menu value is worth 8. So now they would drop down from 190 to 174, and Olive Garden would be rated or higher than Chili's. So presumably, you would have a better attitude, or essentially the same attitude. Consumers would have the same attitude towards Chili's. The fourth different strategy is to add a new attribute, a new feature of your brand that is important to the target market, where you have a distinct and substantial competitive advantage, either because you're the only one who offers it, or you're able to do it much better than your competition. For example, for Olive Garden, they recently tried this. They now offer, with certain meals, entrees, a free entree to bring home with you. So you get twice the food. None of the other restaurants do that. So if this is important to the diners to have a free meal to bring home, which I assume it would, they can gain a lot of extra points, so to speak, on their attitude score. So if it's worth a 7 and people like the food, so they give them a 9, that would be 63 additional points, which would put their score up to 241. And where Chili's and TGIF don't even offer this, their attitude scores would be much lower. You can see that this is a really attractive strategy as long as you can add a feature that is perceived as meaningful and that your performance is either unique, you're the only one with it, or is much better than your competition. The hard part, of course, is most companies are able to copy or imitate your changes, and pretty soon everybody offers it. It's like frequent flyer miles, whitening in toothpaste, tartar control, and all those types of attributes or features which companies introduce to try to get an edge, improve people's attitudes toward the brand, enhance their likelihood of purchasing it, but over time the competitors react and they copy and imitate, and pretty soon everybody offers it. So it no longer becomes something of great distinction. Now, in summary, the 4 attitude change strategies are: 1, first, change beliefs about the performance of your brand on an important feature. So T-Mobile now has 4G LTE speed commercials to make sure that everybody knows that they have the same performance as everyone else. The second thing you can do is change the importance of a feature. Okay? Make it more important if it's something that you do well. Sprint has an unlimited plan with no restrictions, so they should continue to emphasize the importance. If it's something that you have a disadvantage on, make it less important. It doesn't have to be that important to people. Try to minimize the importance of it. The third strategy is change beliefs about the performance of your competitors on an important feature. One way to think about this is AT&T and Verizon now have unsubsidized phone plans like T-Mobile. So where the Verizon Edge plan, for example, you can get a lower cost and lower fees as long as you pay for your phone yourself, and they'll do it through a loan. So now T-Mobile can't claim that they have lower plans than Verizon. The last one is add a new feature, a new salient feature, something that will be important to people where you have an advantage. Be the first with the most. T-Mobile unleashed, so they're the first ones to launch no contracts. Verizon now touts their XLTE, even faster speeds. So these strategies are 4 separate ways that you can try to improve or enhance consumer attitudes toward your brand to make it more likely they're going to purchase it.